Hey everyone, welcome to Disastrous Cycle. My plan for these videos I'm going to be doing is where we kind of BS about bikes, life, whatever topics come up, fix some stuff at the same time. Trying to do something a little bit different than those traditional mechanic videos where somebody's just sitting there working on an engine and there's not really any talking and everything's sped up. I'm going to try to do this a little bit different. Maybe it's going to work, maybe it's not. But this bike right here, this is project number one. This is well, let's see, how many of you out there can maybe guess what kind of bike this is or what year it is? Of course, there's no engine in it, which makes it a little bit tougher. But this is, there's a little bit of a giveaway right there in that tank. This is a 1971 CB 175. And this bike has been in the family for a while. My father bought this, I believe it was 1974 when he bought it. It had had two previous owners. And I was riding this bike in the late 90s. And probably maybe even into like 2000 or 2001. And then what happened one day, I was on the highway with this, and when I took an exit, the engine just completely died. You know, there was no power, no nothing. And I thought that the cam chain probably broke. And it was the end of the summer when that happened, so I didn't fix it right away. And we all know what happens then, right? You push it into the shed, and you say you're going to get to it in the spring. And that didn't happen. What happened is I bought another bike instead, this one over here. And then I started riding this, but my intention was to always go back and fix this Honda. And you know, things happen and you get busy and years pass. And now it's been more than 20 years that this poor Honda's been neglected. And I figure it's about time to keep that promise I made all those years ago and get this thing running again. So something I do know about it, so I'll show you the engine over here. I know that the cam chain is not broken. I already looked into it and figured that out. I got no compression, and I tried looking in the cylinders with a scope, and I really couldn't make out too much. I think that the borescope I have isn't the greatest. So it's still a little bit of a mystery exactly what we're going to find when we tear into this. I'm thinking it could be that it was just, although the bike seemed to run pretty decent when I had it, but I'm wondering if maybe it was out of tune and, you know, maybe running too lean or something like that. And because I was on the highway with it, riding it, you know, kind of hard for a few miles, and then, like I said, when I let off the throttle to take that exit, that's when I knew something really bad had happened. But I'm wondering if it could have a hole in the piston or a burnt valve or something, maybe because it was out of tune. Because I did have those pod air filters on here. I didn't have the stock air filters. I had these mufflers over here. Let me show you. This is the stock header. Pipe right here, stock header pipe, but this muffler is from a Suzuki 450, I believe. And so between having air filters that didn't belong on the bike and mufflers that didn't belong on the bike, and I never, rejetted anything, but the bike did seem like it was running okay, though, had power and everything. But, maybe all those things led to its demise, you could say. The other thing we're going to do, this thing's going to have to get torn all the way down, because not only because of the age and how long this thing hasn't, how long it hasn't ran for. Yeah, and I used to see too, sometimes now we do oil changes on this, there'd be like a little bit of copper looking substance in the oil, so I don't know, there's probably bushings in here that are going to need to get changed. Also, from those mufflers that I showed you, those Suzuki 450 mufflers, when those mufflers were on the bike, the Kickstarter would barely touch the muffler when you kicked the bike. And I thought it was no big deal. And let me tell you something, if you got a Kickstart motorcycle and that Kickstarter is hitting something that it shouldn't, even if it's not much, correct it. Because I didn't, and I would just kickstart it and let it bounce off the Kickstarter, bounce off the muffler a little bit. So let me see if I can show you guys what happened from having that muffler in the wrong spot. This right here, there's the shaft where your Kickstarter would bolt to, and I'm not sure if you can see it. I think you can see it good enough. The teeth are all eaten up on it and all worn away on it. And that didn't happen immediately, of course. That happened over time, from that Kickstarter just barely hitting that muffler, getting tweaked ever so slightly, kick after kick, week after week, month after month. I got to the point one day where I kicked it and it just slipped, and I was like, uh-oh, maybe, the bolt came loose or something like that, the pinch bolt, and you snug that up, and nope, it would maybe get a couple more kicks out of it, and then it slipped again, and then you pull the Kickstarter off and see the splines are all eaten up on the shaft. So the moral of that story, don't let your Kickstarter hit anything on the bike. Lots to do on this. It's a little corroded and stuff from sitting in the shed and stuff for so many years, but I'm sure we can clean that up one way or another, and smaller stuff to deal with. So, like I saw my girlfriend's plants over here. I'm trying to save up to fix old motorcycles, and she's spending all the money on plants. Another thing too, when it comes to bikes and me, I'm a big fan of air-cooled motors. A lot of liquid-cooled motors, not all of them, but a lot of them to me are just really ugly. There's some good-looking ones, like my nephew's got a Suzuki that's it's like an 800cc V-twin Suzuki Cruiser. He had it here the other day. I was getting a look at it. It's got a pretty good looking motor in it for a water cooled motor. They hit everything kind of nice and they put fins on it. They definitely put some effort into still making the motor look nice. But then there's other bikes out there that are liquid cooled that the motors just look like they just look like an ugly block, let's be honest. You know what I mean? There's no thought at all put into how the motor looks. And that's depending on your priorities, that might not be a big deal, right? If you're a sport bike kind of a guy, you're all about the numbers and the power kind of a guy, you probably don't care at all what the motor looks like, and that's fine in that case, Like, I think even though this motor right here is painted all black and everything, I still find it a pretty good looking motor. Something about it just fits the whole bike, it looks nice. But yeah, some motors are really ugly but high performance, and hey, like I said, if that's your thing and you don't care, you probably don't care. Some, of course, there's bikes that you can't even see the motor. But me, myself, I got to like the look of a motor. I got one over here out of a bike too. I'm gonna have a few projects going on that we'll talk about later on and figure. I don't know exactly what I'm gonna do with all these projects. I know I want to get to them all and bring all these back to life. But exactly what we're going to do, are we going to make a chopper, a drag bike, like a land speed record type bike, or just a street bike? We'll cross that bridge when we get there, I guess. But I've got to like the look of a motor, or I'm not interested in it. I mean, and don't get me wrong, I'll get on a high performance motor and take it for a ride and enjoy it, but I won't buy it. You know what I mean? I need a bike that I look at and I like the whole bike, and the whole thing kind of speaks to me, and the motor's big to me. Like, I got to look at the motor and I got to like how the motor looks. This CB175 motor right here, this doesn't, it's weathered too, of course, now out of the bike might not look too great right now. Of course, grease and oil on and stuff. We're going to clean this all up. But if you look up the CB175 and look at some pictures of these bikes, nice ones, the motor looks really nice in those bikes. It really is a good looking motor. So we will bring this one back and get it good looking again. Now, something else, this motor, you can see how kind of dirty it is. If I thought that I was only going to have to, say, put a cam bearing or a cam in this motor and that's it, I would make sure that this was nice and clean before I started taking anything apart, because you don't want to have like dirt and grime on parts that you're going to remove, and then maybe, little bits of that, little particles of sand or little bits of dirt could fall into the motor while you're separating parts and moving parts around. So I would clean everything really good first before I started taking this apart. But in this case right here, I'm not too worried about it because I know this motor's coming all the way down, and everything's going to get cleaned, and we're going to be replacing seals and replacing bearings, and everything's going to get scrubbed and polished. And so the fact that it's dirty when we take it apart, not that big a deal in this case. But if you're working on your engine, my recommendation would be, if you're working on your engine and you're not taking the whole thing down, you're not taking everything apart, then get whatever you're taking apart, get all that whole area nice and clean, so that you're not introducing dirt and stuff like that into the internals of your engine where you don't want them. Something to keep in mind. Something I've often wondered too about these air-cooled motors is how much thought really went into how they look. I mean, I was watching this other channel, and these guys were talking about old motors, like old Harley knuckleheads and things like that, and they were saying that basically that the look of the motor was accidental, and that everything was just done because of function, and form was never considered. But I don't know if I believe that though, because I'll tell you, my brother is a mechanical engineer. He's a pretty smart guy, and he could probably design a motor and tell you that the crank needs to be a certain size, and you got to have a certain ratio in the transmission to get this kind of performance out of it. He would figure stuff like that out. I can't believe that they left it all up to like a mechanical engineer. Because my brother's got no patience. He's not gonna design this cover and then say, hey, let's put this kind of bar through the center of it to give it a little look, and let's take this cover that's going to cover the sprocket and give it this kind of wave and flow to it, and no, it would look like an ugly brick. It would all work good and function right, but he's no artist, right? And I think there had to be a lot of at least a few good artists involved in these steps, saying, whoa, yeah, you want to make this motor with these within these parameters, that's fine, but here's how it's going to look. Here's how it's going to be shaped. You know what I mean? And it seems impossible to me otherwise that they would come out looking so good. But anyways, that's pretty much it for this first video. I know we didn't do too much in this first video. I just kind of talked. But in the next one, rest assured, we'll be chatting some more, which I hope you guys like this, because I always like chatting about bikes and talking about bikes. And even if it's a, one-way conversation, I hope somebody enjoys it, because I sometimes like listening to podcasts where somebody's just talking about bikes. But, the next video, we'll be tearing into this. And then the other thing too is, which we'll kind of figure out as we go, I'm not sure for this first project, this CB, are we going to keep it stock, or are we going to make it like a scrambler, or are we going to do something else and kind of customize it a bit? I know some of you out there now are saying, this is not the stock paint. This bike was originally red and white, but we spray bombed it black. But that's about it. Other than changing the color, this bike is pretty much 100% stock, and it's pretty much all the parts are here. So I know some of you right now are probably yelling at your phones or your TV, don't destroy a stock bike, put it back to stock. I get that, but at the same time, I want to enjoy the bike, I want to ride the bike. So if I'm going to enjoy it more, having it set up different, then I'm going to set it up different. But I do agree with you guys that you shouldn't destroy a nice stock old motorcycle like this. So I can guarantee you what I am gonna do. Like for example, if I change those handlebars, I'm keeping those bars. They're not gonna get thrown out. You know what I mean? If I decide to change this front rim and run some other kind of a rim, then this rim's gonna get stored away, so that in the future, if I do sell this bike or if I want to go back to stock with the bike, if I decide I want to go back to 100% stock, I can. I'm going to have all the parts and all the pieces. I'm not going to destroy anything. I'm not going to cut the frame. I'm not going to rake it. I'm not going to do anything like that. Anything I do to it will be reversible. Let's put it that way. So, anyways, guys, that's it for now. I'll see you in the next one when we start tearing into this. I got to do a little work first. You can see like my bench is kind of messy. So I wouldn't recommend beginning a project like this until you got a clean area. So I'm going to clean this up first, and this will be nice and clean when we get to work. I like to use these muffin tins to kind of organize everything and organize parts and screws, and it makes going back together with stuff a lot easier. So that's why I have those there. And then some of this stuff is from other projects, so I got to clean it up. That's the other thing. Be careful of working on two projects at one time. You can get overwhelmed. Your parts get all mixed up. If you're working on your girl's machine and your machine at the same time, that can be, a recipe for disaster. You're going to have Dirt Devil parts and Honda parts all mixed up together, and you won't know what's what. So definitely be organized before you start a big project like this. That'd be my piece of advice. Oh, and one other thing. Leave a comment below. Let me know what you think about air-cooled motors versus liquid-cooled motors. If it matters to you at all, if it's air-cooled or water-cooled, or if it matters to you at all, what the engine looks like. Are you crazy like me? Does it drive you nuts if you don't like the look of the motor? Or does it not really matter? And do you just care more about the horsepower and the torque? Let me know. I'm curious to know what you guys think. All right. See you guys in the next one.